Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry. With me as always is...
Ladies and gentlemen, Irving Wallace, Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we are talking about StageFright, a.k.a. Deliria, a.k.a. Aquarius, a.k.a. Bloody Bird. So take your pick.
A.k.a. Soundstage Massacre.
Is that an actual... Is it one, or is it just like the thing that they call it at the end of the movie?
It's one of the ones that's included when it's listed on Blu-ray.com when I was doing my research, so just don't want it to be forgotten.
Yeah, this was released July 27th, 1987. Here we are, we're talking about it. But what's going on? How are you?
I don't know.
Are we setting the tone for the rest of the record?
The world is insane. I don't even mean like current events or anything like that, although, that doesn't help either. But just, I don't know. It just feels like going outside, I don't want to. There are equal extremes of people who are so timid, they won't take the right of way traffic-wise when it's totally their right, and they will just sit there and wait for you to do something. And then they'll be like, okay, now I can act. And then there are other people who just, that red light is, hasn't been up for very long. I'll just coast through. That's kind of like the two extremes I'm reeling from this week. How are you doing?
As an introvert, I feel like the reason, and like a homebody, the reason that I like enjoy being at home is because, you're just avoiding all that shit.
100%.
Yeah, you just kind of like, you know what? I had a great day because I did not get off the couch.
People mistake, I think, especially if they see me relaxed around, friends who I can be very, very blabby with, and just seem very kind of at ease and everything like that. It creates an illusion of an extrovert. I have guys that I've dated who still swear that I'm an extrovert, and I'm like, you don't know me at all, because you have no idea how much it costs to turn something on. Like, extroverts thrive, I think, on other people's energy. Me, I can, but I need to regroup. I need to go home. I need to be in a box.
I think you're like me in a sense that you're an introverted or an extroverted introvert. That you are an introvert, but like every once in a while you need that outlet just to kind of like put it there and then be like, you know what? I did it. And now I can go back and just like sit at home, avoid everything, and then maybe in 6 months I'll go back and get my fill of extroverts again.
Well, I mean, but not even extroverts, because honestly, like at this stage of my life, I thrive being around other people who are also introverts because they get it. We'll be on the same page, spend a couple hours together, and then if I don't hear from you for a while, cool. And if you don't hear from me for a while, cool. We're just gonna, it's our lives. It's, it's there's never any of that, where the hell have you been? Kind of, I can't deal with that in my life. I have to just keep moving.
I'm like super chill until I like need something. And then it just like, where were you? I needed it. Yeah. I can admit that about myself. I am sometimes just way too much.
No, I wouldn't put it that. I wouldn't go to that extreme. But there are times where I know, and it doesn't happen often, but I can't even think of an example. But I am familiar with the situation where, you needed something and I wasn't there, and it's like, well, you have my phone number. Like, text me directly. I get alerts.
I did, or you just mean
it's been a while. It's been like over a year. Like, it's been a long time. But like, it was one of those things.
Is it embarrassing? Do you want to?
No, I can't even remember. Like, because I don't. It's not like it's something that like seeded itself in me that I'm like carrying around with, like developing bile around it and going like, I'm gonna spew this on you, someday. No, it's just something that like I remember just the sensation of going like, oh my gosh, Zach's spinning his wheels. I'm here. I got this. And it's like, okay. And then you just give me a little thumbs up emoji and we're cool. It's nothing. Okay. Nothing dramatic, but I yeah, that's I just want to.
No, I just wanted. Is it
It's
an
all
embarrassing
good.
story? Like, can we share it with people? But if you don't remember, that's fine.
I can't. No, then obviously
Yeah,
not. It's
it
not
was
because it's
probably
embarrassing, just because I have no memory.
I mean, if it was like us, it was probably something to do with the podcast and timing, and it's
Probably.
just like, where
Yeah.
are you?
Right. Because I've run late myself, every now and then. Where I'm just
Typically-
kind of like, yeah.
Well, for everyone listening or watching, typically it's the other way around. Like, Edward is always ready first, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
coming. And I do like the
Yeah.
Alice in Friday the 13th, like, coming. Like,
Yeah, right.
just lackadaisical. Like, like, I don't know why. It's not like you're Steve Christie, like, slave driving your counselors. And it's like, I said I was coming. But,
Right.
but yeah, you're always ready on the fly for the most part, and I'm just like, oh yeah, okay. But yeah, what's going on today? If my timing is correct, yeah, and it should be, is the launch of the Kickstarter campaign for MACABRE, the short film that I've written with Eric Champney. We're going to be directing it. We've got to raise the funds for it. I'm wearing the T-shirt right now.
Yeah.
That's one of the rewards because we got some merch going on there. But
Sweet.
this is day one, so if you are listening, head over to the campaign page. Just go to Kickstarter. I'll put the link in the YouTube. All that down below, so you can do that too. But if you just go to Kickstarter, you can search MACABRE, which is spelled where am I? No, I'm on the wrong side. MACABRE. It's
MACABRE.
Yeah, MACABRE. And yeah, check it out. See if you're interested. There's the campaign video and all that, and lots of information about what it is and who's all involved and what our goal is with it. But I mean, essentially, like we're just trying to make a movie. We're trying to make a honest to goodness, old fashioned, call back to the 80s and 90s slasher movie with a our own spin on it. But we've been working on it since November, and we've been talking about it since 2021. So it's a long time coming. So we're really excited for it, and we would really appreciate for all you to go down and support in any way you can. And if you can't even support financially, because sometimes that is a big ask, you can support by sharing it with your friends, sharing it with there might be people who can support it, and any little bit helps. Just spread the word. Anyway, speaking of support, I do want to thank my Patreon subscribers here. So for the Michael Myers tier, I want to say thank you to Kyle Beard, Sam Levy, Ali Hamouche, Shane Allingham, Tim McKay, Stephanie Starbright, Horror Slit 95, Bruce, the Genetic Jackhammer Rando, Josh Carr, Michael Boswell, Brandy Beebe, and then the Ghostface says, is it like, is that plural for like ghost face? I guess ghost faces or the ghost face. Look at all those ghost face over there. Like, does that...
Like moose? Because I know.
Or geese.
Plural for moose.
Geese.
Yeah, geese is... So the ghost feces. The ghost feces.
Don't call them that.
Okay, ghost faces, I think.
ghost
Because
fa-
faces, plural. Yeah.
I guess so, yeah.
The ghosts' faces.
To my ghost faces, Eric Champney, who I mentioned, who's on my T-shirt here, Daniel Saturn, Baby Ghoul, and Garrison Nichols. Thank you so much. Thank you to our editor, Jason Voorhees Galatello. I don't know if there's any relationship there. But with that said, let's get into StageFright. What's this all about?
Oh, I don't have it at the ready. I haven't worked in a while. Here we go. I've got... What voice do you want to hear this in? Do you have a preference at all?
I want you to do like a bad Italian dubbing where, because you know how like Italian film, like the Italian language or most languages that aren't English, like are like a sentence actually goes on much longer. So then when they dub it in English, just so they can match what the translation is to the length of time it takes for the actor to speak and move their lips. So the English dubbing actually has to add words into it. So I want you to do it where you're adding unnecessary words just to pad it.
I also have to say, one thing I've noticed with dubbing, maybe it's to get urgency across or something through the voice. Do you ever notice there's not whispering, but a great deal of air? Like there's excess air, like hello, I'm here. I don't know. I'll try it. Okay. When an escaped psychopath sneaks into the locked theater where a group of stage performers rehearse for their upcoming musical production, one by one, the cast and crew are killed off, giving the last few standing a terminal case of stage fright.
You need to try it with every different title of the movie.
God. You want me to read all the titles?
No, I don't.
Deliria, Bloody Bird, Soundstage Massacre, StageFright Aquarius. There you go. It won't work for the sentence because the last sentence uses the term stage fright. It will give them stage fright Aquarius. Anyway, go on.
What is the where does the Aquarius come in?
You got me.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you. That's my first note. I wrote Aquarius with a question mark for Zach.
Well, first of all, I want to ask you, where can people buy or stream this? Because I have the Blu-ray edition. I don't know. I can't remember who distributes it, but it's called Aquarius.
I do.
So thank you. So on my shelf, that version is just, Stage Fright on the or Aquarius on the packaging.
Yes, Zach Cherry, I can't speak anymore. The Blu-ray release available is courtesy of Blue Underground. It's got a 4-star video quality rating and a 5-star audio quality rating on Blu-ray.com, including 2 separate playable tracks that can accompany the feature. You get 2.0 and you got 5.1. They think both of them are great. It's also available streaming on Pluto TV, Prime, and Tubi, which is how I watched it with ads. And that's the 1987 Stage Fright, one word, anyone who's wondering, because I did have to clarify with you before when I was searching, because there is a 2-word Stage Fright. There's a bunch of movies named Stage Fright, actually, but there was another horror movie released in 1980 that also went by another name like Murders or something like that. Yeah. And I was just kind of like, I thought it was this one that we're discussing, but just for clarity, so I didn't watch the wrong movie. Yeah, I wanted to make sure.
And then me being as obtuse as possible, I just sent you an emoji of an owl. Because that's what you do to me, or send a GIF. Of course. How can I use as few words as possible, but also make this take a lot longer?
But I think you were also. It's great, but I think thank you for my retribution, as it were. But, I definitely deserved it. But the thing was, I have seen this movie before. If we can get into that, I have seen it before. I think probably about a year ago for the first time. It was a movie weekend with my oldest friend John Carlos and my sister and his John Carlos's Lady Tracy, and we all just sit there and watch movies, all weekend. And this was a very late, I think either Friday or Saturday night, so still early in the thing, but it was late in the day, and we literally just sit and watch movies. So I was tired. So by the time we got to the climax, I conked out. I just couldn't bring myself, and I didn't realize there's a half hour left of screen time from the point that
the feather falls on her.
Yeah, basically from the point that Allie wakes up.
That's when the movie starts. I mean, we'll get into that later, but okay. I'm curious though, how many movies do you do in these weekends? You just kind of go there with a sleeping bag and snacks and stuff. I'm gonna be here all weekend, and you just kind of
yeah, I mean, basically they have many rooms that we can occupy. My sister and I used to share a room, but I snore too much now, so I just sleep on the floor in the room that we watch the movies in. But
yeah, sometimes they just leave you there. They're like, just well.
Oh no, they try to give me an air mattress and everything like that, and I'm like, no, my back. I'd rather just sleep on the floor, and I do. Yeah. They just lay some bedspreads down, and I just lay on them. I'm like, this is great, and
you're having a picnic.
And then yeah, it's like a nighttime picnic. But anyway, we usually it depends, because also there's like game playing and meals prepared, and sometimes if it's around Halloween we do pumpkin carving and stuff like that. So it depends, but it can be anywhere from, say, maybe 10 to 16. I don't know. I don't try to tally them up. It's just like we have an ongoing list that we always defer to and try to curate as we go. We and if there's anything that we want to hit beforehand, we just all put it onto our common thread, and say, well, this is one I definitely want to see this weekend because fill in the blank.
Yeah.
So but this was one I think he just wanted to show us, because he kept talking to me about it, and I kept thinking it was that movie Curtains. Are you familiar with that one?
I have it. I started to watch it one time, but I like you, I conked out, and I just hadn't gotten. It was sitting on my TV stand for the longest time, because that's like that. Usually, that's where as you can see behind me, all the movies live there. But sometimes they kind of go on vacation to the living room, and they'll just sit there in like a big stack. Like there's a huge stack of them, and it's usually when I get something new, and it's just like it'll sit there, and they'll be there for like 6 months, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta watch that. So I had that there, and I think it's since migrated back here, but I do have to watch it.
Okay. I watched that one I had on VHS that my dad taped. I don't know why. He never watched it, but I guess he has that same thing, that same malady, except with VHS that he records off of the television. And I watched it once, probably in my early teens. I don't remember exactly when I was old enough to see it, I guess. Old enough in quotes. And I just remember there's a very, very violent assault, we'll just say that, in it, that I was like, oh, and then you kind of find out, oh, and then there's actresses, and they're all vying for a part, and you're like, oh. And and so whenever John Carlos would bring up StageFright, I kept thinking that's what he was talking about. Then I told him, oh, no, wait, that's Curtains. And he's like, oh, no, StageFright's something else. You need to see it. Showed it to me. I had fun with it, but I did fall asleep. Didn't fall asleep this screening, though, so I'm proud of myself for that. How about you?
Because I don't want to carry, I first saw StageFright, my gosh, like I want to say 3 years ago, or just like under 3 years ago, because I just moved here to my current residence, and I was making the horror movie references in the Scream franchise videos, and I had already done the first one, or I had started the first one, and then I was moving on to the second one. So if you go to like IMDb, because this is like requires a lot of research and just like what are the movies, because there's the ones that I know, and then there was like another layer of things that maybe I missed that I don't know about. And one of them listed was StageFright. So I went to watch a lot of these movies just to see where's the correlation. And I can't really, other than the fact that it sort of like takes place, like, the final showdown on a stage. There's an axe involved. They're moving through kind of, I guess, the bowels of the theater.
And the brain, the overhead flies as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess like the killer's shot in the head, and like they never stay dead. That's all there trope wise. But I watched this one, and I think that I had to watch it on YouTube, because there was like a lot of things that I'd have to either buy, and I didn't want to spend money on things that it's just like, is this actually a reference, or are you just kind of yanking my chain? So this one I found on YouTube, and it might have been, I don't remember if it was in English or had subtitles or whatever, but I watched it and I was just like, this is like a really cool looking movie, even if I can't understand what's going on. Everything about this is just interesting to me. So I ended up I don't know if I like rented it or bought it on like digitally, but I did have since purchased it, obviously, on Blu-ray. And I've watched it several times since. It's just one of those movies that's really fun. It's actually, I mean, we have like a list, Eric and I have a list of movies that are kind of like the inspiration for Macabre. Just in terms of like, certain vibes that we were going for, like, homages, and StageFright is one of them. It's actually like very serendipitous that, today is the launch of the campaign and we're covering this. Because it's one that just like, it's just like, it's got that Italian, like, it's not really giallo, but it's, it's definitely like slasher, but it's got that weird like 80s Italian horror essence to it. And the correlation, because Jason, our editor, actually, he was messaging me, he's like, I can't wait to hear about what the correlation is between like the connection to Black Christmas that I mentioned last week. And the connection, it's not that there's a connection, it's just that there's a scene in the movie where when she goes into the office because she's looking for the keys and finds the gun, but there's like a big American flag behind her, and there's all these like Time magazines with very like American looking like covers and stuff. So it's like that was their way of showing like, yes, this takes place in America, very much like the way that Black Christmas takes place in America with the flags in the police department, but everyone is clearly Canadian with Canadian accents.
Yeah, and even just like a genuine, I mean, we said that in the pod, remember? Just the feel in the air. It just, the vibe feels like you're in Canada. It does not feel like you're even in northern or northeastern U.S.
And nothing in this movie feels like it's in the States.
Not at all. Like, I'm getting like hostile vibes, like TEL, hostel vibes. But I mean, even from the beginning though, like, 'cause it's funny. I agree with you. It's slasher, like, for sure, and everything like that. And I had forgotten a lot of this movie, probably just because of my mental state, my fatigue at the end of the day watching this, and being so comfortable and so full of like, the food that we've been consuming. Like today it was midday. The plan was to watch it last night, and then I just got home at such an ungodly hour from my shift. I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to give this my full attention. I'm glad I waited. So I sat down and I started taking the notes, and I just started hearing the water sloshing and the mewing as the opening credits happen. And I was like, okay, what is this? And I immediately just had like a European feel, It just, it was so ambiguous, and it was so, like wondering like, oh, the cat, wait, what? I mean, just my imagination started to ask questions, and most of the time, particularly in the 80s, there's a lot of 80s slasher movies that don't allow for that. There are a lot of Italian movies that just want, that love to live in the ambiguity and love for me to go, wait, what? And because then the next thing we see, like, were Allie's, and we didn't know that, who she is yet, but we just see like these legs with these incredible stockings for days just going on. She's got what we don't know is a wig yet, but this wonderful crimpy kind of
she kind of looks like an ostrich.
Kind of. Yeah. There is something very bird-like about it.
There's a lot of bird-like stuff in the movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because I was going to say, you sent me the owl, and I'm not familiar enough. I didn't even remember that the owl figured as, like, a very, very significant player in this movie. So when you sent it to me, that's why I was just kind of like, here's the bubble again. Which one are we watching? And then you sent me the arrow gif of the killer with the thing, and I was like, oh, I have a vague memory of that. Okay, and I checked the IMDb page. I saw the photos. I was like, that's the one I should be watching. And that was, and as things started to unfold, I started to go, oh, right, this is a play? Or...
It's kind of like... Do you remember the movie Team America?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The Lease the musical? Is that
oh my gosh. No. It's more of just like the fact that, like, because the whole movie is like, it's like puppets. And they initially start, like, the first shot of the movie is like little like crappy puppets, because I mean, like, when South Park, because this is the creators of South Park, first came out, it was just like, it was like the shitty little like cut and paste animation, and obviously after the pilot they went digital, even though it still kind of retains that look until like now it's like they're really going at it with interesting animation. But like at the time it was kind of known for that. Like South Park just sort of like a very homemade kind of cartoon.
Yeah.
And I don't remember when Team America came out. It was like probably around like season 4 or 5 of the show. And the first shot is just like crappy little puppets. And the whole purpose of that, and I think that it actually happened, is one of the executive producers or whoever saw the dailies and were just like, they fucked us. And then it kind of like pulls out and it shows that it's actually like they're in the streets of Paris and there's a puppet like proper, like who's like doing like little puppet things with these like crappy ones. So to make a long story less long, the movie starts off and it's sort of like, it looks like it's like, well, this is like clearly a set, but it's like, it looks really bad. Like it looks like it's a very cheaply made movie. And then as like she's being strangled, and then you kind of get the saxophone playing girl, all the people are like coming out, and then we pull back and we see that this is a play and they're rehearsing, and it's sort of, so it's like this reveal.
Yeah, and one thing that it reveals is also more questions for me, because it feels like, I mean, because you're homemade, talking about like Team America, like that's the same thing for this. Like it's definitely got that community theater, like junior high school kind of like homemade, like, you know, thin drywall, you know, just kind of like nailed tentatively to like some boards to like create like a street that makes Sesame Street look realistic, you know, kind of thing. So you're just like, oh, this is terrible. But then once they pull back, then it starts to feel like, are they shooting a master for a music video? Because the way the director's watching and the way he's got people behind him, positioned behind him, like that's the way you usually depict people when they're filmmaking, you know? So, but then I kept looking for like the boom operator or the, and I think there is a camera, but it only created more questions, and again hooked me. Like I just kept leaning in, wondering what is all this? Well, because even with go ahead.
Well, this is a question that I had, because is this the actual place where they put on the production, or is this just sort of like a rehearsal studio? Because they're talking about how this is a show that's been run, like they want 6 more months, yada yada yada. But I don't see like any like auditorium, like seating place. Like it's just like an empty warehouse.
And also, I started wondering, is that a motif? Because there's scaffolding on stage, there's scaffolding backstage, there's scaffolding in the house. And is that just to kind of lend itself to kind of, you know, like the grit? Maybe they haven't gotten the seats in yet, because I did get, you know, the question answered a little bit later when the director Peter is talking about like the opening, you know, like obviously audiences are going to be going to a box office and purchasing tickets to come and see this. This is the thing. You typically, when you're doing a professional endeavor like a play or a musical, you do rehearse in a separate space that is less expensive than the space you're going to be performing, and you tape down the dimensions of the stage so you know how far your actors have to work, you know, and everything like that, and you can kind of keep in mind, you know, your lighting plot and stuff like that. And any furniture or any, like, you know, stationary sets that are going to stay there. Then when you move into the space where you're actually going to be performing, that's where you put up your sets. You don't generally put up a full set, no matter how handmade, you know, it looks, in your rehearsal space. But they were also filming, so maybe they were filming it for a commercial. I couldn't wrap my head around exactly what was going on.
Your guess is as good as mine. But they were also just making it up as they went along. They're just like, Peter, which is like inspiration hits, and it's just like, this is what we're doing now. And everyone's just kind of like, ugh, how do we keep up with this? Oh my God, I wonder what his zodiac sign is. Maybe he's the Aquarius.
Maybe. Oh, maybe. I don't know. Peter, okay, like, I'm just going to, cards on the table. I am at such a loss with Peter, and maybe your opinion will help curb us in one direction rather than the other, because I spend equal time hating him and wishing he would die, and as well as thinking he's the movie. Like, for me, Peter's selfishness is endlessly entertaining, and also they try to give him dimension and stuff like that along the way when he starts to, because he doesn't listen to a lot of the warnings he gets until it's too late, and then he's a bit remorseful about it, but it doesn't necessarily redeem him, because then we'll just jump ahead when the killer is pursuing him directly in his final moments. He takes a cast member, his new star, and he doesn't even use her as a human shield, pushes her into the path of the killer. So he's offering her as like a human sacrifice. Like, here, take her.
Or just to like slow him down a little.
And it doesn't work.
No,
really.
it doesn't. And he doesn't even like really. She's like pushed into the chainsaw, and like survives, but like barely
for a while.
And and it's just like he just keeps going after him anyway. But no, like there's a balancing act. Like he's a lot of fun. I mean, especially compared to our final girl, who's, oh my god, like she has her moments, but by and large, like I would be really interested in casting her in the next Survivor Final Girls, just because
it's like, my god,
there are moments in it, because like talking about characters that like you kind of like you hate, but then you're just like, actually I kind of get it. You're just like I'm there, because when they're climbing the ladder and she grabs onto what's the girl, the one who got pushed into the Laurel. Because Laurel's kind of the bitch of the piece, and they're climbing the thing, and you're climbing a ladder. You put a hand on the rung. You put a hand on the rung on top of that. You do that. And she's just like, I guess Laurel was going too fast for her or whatever. Like, they're running for their lives to get away from this. They're to like stay in the group. And Alicia grabs Laurel's foot and starts tugging at it and pulling it down. And then she's just like, get off of me, let me go. And she kind of like kicks her off, and that's what causes her to fall and I guess get concussed for a time. And it's just like, on one hand, and I'm just like, oh, you bitch. But on the other hand, it's just like, but I get it. There was no reason for her to be like tugging on your foot and trying to pull you down with her. It was like Alicia was the sinking ship. We were talking about this earlier. And it's just like, if I'm going down, you're coming down with the sinking ship. So
I mean, I think it was just a misplaced hand. Maybe I'll have to look at it again.
Because she said like, wait for me, like don't like.
Oh, okay. So she was panicking.
On purpose, yeah.
Or I don't know about purpose, but she was panicking. And also, that's the thing. She's fascinating as a final girl, because we've talked about final girl by default. I mean, she's obviously, from the moment we see her, like she's going to be a final girl. I love the fact that they plant the seed for her ankle being an issue, so much so that she needs. I mean, it's an issue so we can get her out of the theater to a psychiatric hospital, quote unquote, to get a cortisone shot from a creepy doctor who, when he's telling them about, the psychopath who's under lock and key in the next room, they start speculating about, how many lives he took when he was out last. And he's just kind of like saying proudly with a big beaming smile, 16. And then you see he just starts caressing Allie's ankle, and I'm just kind of like, ew, doctor. He just gave her I guess it's a cortisone shot. They never say, but he shoots something into her ankle. I assumed it was cortisone, and then he just starts like rubbing it, and I'm like, ew. And then we never hear from him again.
Wasn't cortisone what in Halloween, where they're just like, what do I give? No, it was Thorazine. Remember, it's just like, what do I give him when he stands before the judge? Thorazine. He'll barely be able to stand up. That's the point.
That's the
that's the idea.
Yeah. There you go. I was waiting for it. But yeah. So the creepy doctor lets her go, and then they don't know that they've got the cute orderly, who I was kind of like, oof. And I know why he needed to be so memorable, because we see him in profile with a syringe in his neck, laying in the bed of Irving. What was his last name? I said it. Irving Wallace.
Irving Wallace, yeah.
Because Irving Wallace wants out, and so he kills the orderly, dons his scrubs, I guess, and nothing to see here, and just kind of, jumps ship.
There's a lot of
in the car of Betty and Allie.
Yeah.
Back to the theater.
Well, yeah. What's funny is like the setup for the movie, just in terms of like the killer getting there, is so ridiculous. Like it's just like it's so random, and her like having to go there too. And I love the whole bit of like her I guess her swollen ankle or whatever, because this doesn't make sense to me either, because in the opening number, where they're all dancing and the owl and all that, and I guess her character is like killed, but then she's like dancing with them, and because that's why Peter's so aggravated with her, because she's not being like sexual enough with it. But it's just like, wait, wasn't she dead? But the most hilarious thing, and probably like the most unintentionally hilarious thing about this movie to me, is in the action of all this like dancing and stuff, they throw a dummy up in the air, which I guess is supposed to be her, because she's not there. Like when this happens, like they throw a dummy that has her ostrich wig and her clothing, and they throw it up in the air, and it lands like a dummy would, and I thought for like the longest time, like because it's a stunt and they didn't want to use like an actual person, that they did that. So I thought that that's where she injured herself. But then like afterwards, she doesn't like allude to like being thrown up in the air and like crashing down. She just says that her ankle's been bothering her for a while. So missed opportunity there for them. They could have been like, that was the moment. And they actually like called attention to it in like the editing, like had an insert shot of her like falling and being like, oh,
right.
But yeah, it just seemed totally random. It was just more of a way to, get them from point A to point B. But it always struck me as hilarious that they didn't attempt to do this like trick with an actual like person who could like do the acrobatics of all that and land safely. They just decided, let's just use a dummy, and it looks fake as shit. Like it just it looks bad.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And also then I kept thinking like, oh, they've planted this seed for her ankle anyway. It's like a necessity to get the killer in, but everything. But I thought, oh, this will figure in, because I did fall asleep during the climax when he's pursuing her for basically about 15 minutes of the half hour. The rest of the time she's very noisily like looking through drawers for keys, trying keys into a lock and everything like that, which is hilarious. Because I start screaming at her. I'm just kind of like, bitch, come on! Like, you okay, he knows where you are. You're dead already. He knows where you are. But I kept thinking like she's going to get chased by him at one point, and her ankle, like the cortisone's going to wear off or something like that. And it never happened. And yet it was funny because I had my mother on the other side of the couch while I was watching this. She agreed to watch with me. She was like, is it dumb? I'm like, you'll probably think it's dumb. She doesn't like a lot of 80s slasher movies. She couldn't make it through the Friday the 13th franchise with me after the second movie. The second movie.
The best
she said,
one?
She said, this movie's dumb. And I was like, what? And she's like, everyone in it is dumb. Like, there's no reason for them to die. They deserve to die.
What was the way that the girl at the video store spoke about Freddy versus Jason?
Oh, the movie is dumb. And then my mom, this movie's dumb. But so there are many ways to deem something dumb. But I love that you remember that.
Oh,
but
of course.
Anyway, yeah. But anyway, so she has a very, but she was like, well, you just don't get mad if I nap during it. I said, sure. She napped after maybe the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then she woke up in time for the climax and watched the rest of it. And there was one point where I'm happy she was there for what she was there for, but particularly for the very end when Allie is, I think it's when she's running from the car to the theater because she needs to get her watch, and she's limping. And my mom's like, oh, she's limping. What? Why is she limping? She didn't do anything. And I'm like, well, she hurt her ankle. before. And she's like, oh, I'm like, it's how the cat, and I had to pause it and just tell her, see, that's how the killer got in the thing, and I mapped it all out for her. She was like, oh, okay, and then we watched the rest of it, and she still thought it was dumb, but but affectionately, she didn't dismiss it, or anything. But anyway, so yeah, I kept waiting for her to like kind of like go, ooh, or something like that, and it just never happened. I was like, okay, well, a little bit of a missed opportunity there. But that said, even though I was like tearing my hair out watching her, just fish noisily for keys, and because doesn't she open the drawer and it makes a loud noise? She's like, ooh, and then she tries to be quiet for like 3 seconds, and then immediately goes right into, through the drawers, and I'm like, he's gonna find you. This is not final girl energy. You should be ashamed of yourself. And I couldn't remember whether she made it or not, so I was kind of hoping that she would die.
Yeah. I mean, she would have if it wasn't for, some assistance.
Oh, for Willie? For Willie?
Willie at the...
Yeah, the stage doorman or whatever he is.
I guess
janitor,
he's just like
I don't know
the caretaker. Or...
Maybe that is...
He's the cat owner. That's all.
The cat owner. Okay,
who just leaves the cat there overnight. Yeah.
I know, and leaves the cat to be like mistreated and stuff like that. Like, I mean, you can't watch your cats every minute of every day, but that's the thing. That was the first thing when Peter handled the cat roughly. I was just kind of like, okay, you're probably going to be my pick for the cherry picker. And then the rest of the movie happened. I was like, now I'm torn because you're quite entertaining, sir. And you have a very interesting face. That's another thing. Interesting faces all around, particularly Allie. That's probably her strongest attribute to me. Is just like, I can't stop watching those eyes and those lips. She's got big eyes and big lips, and she uses them to look vulnerable.
Yeah. And they're really like punched up with the mascara as well.
Oh yeah. She looks so pale in this movie too. There's one point, I think I can't remember if it's when she's standing with Willie, looking at the shot, Irving Wallace on the floor.
Yeah.
But she just, or maybe it's earlier in the movie. I can't remember.
Well, maybe
she just is white as a sheet.
From Fright. She just,
just blood drained out of her face.
Exactly.
Is that what happens?
Oh my gosh. So
what?
Okay, well, I guess we should talk a little bit about the director.
Yes.
Michele Soavi.
Is that how you say it?
I
was just going to say Michelle. But okay.
Yeah, something.
Is it Michele? Oh,
Michele.
CH is... No, CH is ch. Isn't it in Italian? Michele?
It might be. I mean, sure.
Maybe.
Michele.
Okay, go on.
Suave, yeah. So this is interesting because I was watching another movie that he did recently called, not the movie was done recently, but I was watching it recently.
Right.
It's from 1990, called The Sect, and it's actually the fourth Demons movie. Because he did. There's Demons 2, The Church, which he did. I haven't seen it yet, and then The Sect. And I was watching some of the bonus features, and it's hard because they don't. This is something I really hate with a lot of these Italian movies, is that they have featurettes, and these are American distributors, and all these people can speak English, but they go on and they speak in Italian, and they just because it's all subtitles, it's I have to I don't want to be focusing so intently on one thing on the screen when I do this, and they're talking fast, so it's the whole time if you're watching a featurette or an interview or something, it's very boring to look at because you're just looking at words, and they're moving very fast because it's just someone recalling their thoughts on something with the production or whatever. So minor gripe about these distributors, and all these all these people can speak English, but they're just we'll put subtitles, and I can never finish watching any of it. There's always so many, and it's they're wasted. Maybe there are some people out there who actually intently sit there and read through everything, but for me, I want I want to be able to just hear them talk and not have to worry about that. Anyway, that's besides the point. He was kind of recalling I guess his start in the industry, because he started with Argento, and he talked about how he was kind of like a fan of Argento's, and he would just sort of like approach him, like just found a way into his life. Like it all sounded very like single white female, because he's just like, because he's saying like, yeah, I got his number, like, don't ask how, or it was like he's like, I somehow was able to like get a hold of his number.
Someone did a favor.
Yeah.
Or someone repaid a favor.
And he like called him, and I guess he was just like, do you have any jobs for me? And at first Argento was like, no, but then he, I guess, remembered him years later, and then he started working with him on Tenebrae. So he was a production assistant to Lamberto Bava, who was the AD on Tenebrae. And I guess, I don't know if we talked about this during the Tenebrae episode, the guy on the motorbike, if you remember, who's with Maria when they're like having a fight, and she's just like, no, I won't do that, and she gets off and he just drives off. And I always thought it was Gianni, the like Peter Neal's assistant, because like he was like, oh, let's go out together, and then Daria Nicolodi like leaves the hotel and they're on the back of the motorbike, and she's like, bye. I just assumed that was always Gianni, but apparently that was Michele Suave in just like as an extra role. And he also appeared in it. He was in the flashback scene where the killer stabs the lady with the red shoes. He was like her date who like took off for a second, and then the killer came out and stabbed her. But he's also in this. He plays cop number 2, I guess, like the one who's like, don't you think I look like James Dean?
Oh my god, that's him.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
I did expect one of them to ask the other one about a banh mi sandwich when I was watching the movie.
It's very like, well, I mean, and this predates the Halloween 5 cops too.
Yes, of course.
Nice reference. Look at Eddie with the Halloween connection there. But yeah, they were kind of like, especially with Lamberto Bava, he appeared in like a whole bunch of movies that he did. There's one, I think it's called like Blade in the Dark or something, like Eric got me to watch it, and it wasn't great. It was Lamberto Bava, but Michele Suave is in that as well, in a very interesting role. But yeah, they're all like, all these guys, they like appear in each other's movies. They assist on the production of it. Yeah. So
I was looking. So, sorry. Finish it.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I'm curious if Dario Argento did have any involvement in this, or if he was just busy making opera at that point.
I mean, opera's another one. Oof.
Oh, but, we'll get to it. Yeah.
We will.
Yeah.
But with this one, it's interesting because I was looking at Michele, however you say it, Suave's filmography, and there were 2 credits. Looks like he was the second unit director on The Brothers Grimm, that movie with Matt Damon and Heath Ledger that I did not really care for, but he was only second unit, so he might have done some of the stuff that I actually liked, because I remember there were times where the cinematography and the use of color was particularly arresting, but the movie itself just didn't come together in the end. Perhaps if he had directed it, I would have preferred it, because it would have been a little bit weirder, and that's what that movie needed. But I remember a long time ago, in 1994, there was a movie called The Cemetery Man, starring Rupert Everett, that my sister was really, really into, and I remember I kind of watched it over her shoulder. But she watched it all the time, and I just remember Rupert Everett, just scowling a lot, just kind of just hollow face, pale in the rain, like killing people and burying them, and it was fabulous. It was sexy in all the right ways, and I really want to see it again now, because it did have like this strange sense of humor that could never have gotten greenlit by an American studio or a production company, because they might not have trusted that people would have gotten it, again in quotes, whereas the weirdness is is I think was a little bit more allowed to exist even in the mid 90s, and like European cinema and stuff like that. I don't know exactly who produced it, but anyway, just so I was a little familiar with his work prior to this. It makes me really want to revisit Cemetery Man now. But I really, there was one point in particular, like anytime, I always think of giallo anytime someone's saturated in light, particularly if it's a primary color. And there was one point where there was the blue glow from the neon drugstore sign during Ferrari's murder that I was particularly fond of. It just kind of like, because again, it didn't just like bathe them, it made them glow. And I was just kind of like, oh, that's beautiful. I was really enjoying myself. If I had popcorn, I would have been just, just chomping away at it. But I also, something about the heightened melodramatics. Maybe that's another reason why I loved Peter as much as I do, because he gets so many of these great lines. Just like okay, explain to me why after Ferrari is murdered and they discover it, he says, it's all right. There are 6 of us. He's not going to kill all of us. And I'm like, really? Why? What?
So it's like
mansplain
roulette,
it.
like, hopefully.
You fucking director. Like, you can't control everything.
Yeah. But that's the mentality. That's the sort of thing. Like, they can't kill all of us. But if he's coming after me and you're right next to me, I might just grab you and throw you into the...
And ironically, that's the thing. Prior to, like, after that moment, but prior to him pushing his new leading lady that he's replaced his, just that night, previous leading lady with, he's talking about, like, because they're all talking about, like, leaving, I think it was Corinne behind. And he says, no one is left on their own. And I even love, it's got like a little tongue-in-cheek moment, because I can see right behind him scrawled on, I think it's a dressing room mirror, is the word victory. Like, he's rallying the troops and he's going to lead them to the halls of victory, and everyone will survive. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're not in that movie.
Yeah, I think it's the moment you're thinking of might have been where Alicia is actually, because she starts complaining about her ankle again, and that's where Laurel is just like, then you can stay here. God, Laurel's great.
Okay.
And she's like, yeah, you can then just stay here. And then he's like, no. The idea everyone comes. But now that, we were talking about it, the reason that he wants everyone there, because it's almost like the safety in numbers, and like the more people around him, it's like kind of a protective shield. But I did notice that, and I wanted to ask you about this in particular, because he seemed to be very broken up about Mark getting killed, and I got the sense that like that was his lover, or his like fuck boy, or it was like his assistant, like this, because this kid is like clearly miserable, because he's just like he is the assistant, he's got to do all the things, and it's sort of like, I know this guy's an asshole and I've got to be an asshole on his behalf, but there had to have been something in it for him. Or a price that he had to pay, and I think that they were hooking up, and that's why when he does come back and discovers Mark dead, he just has that moment. He's like, no, like nobody else got that treatment. Like when poor Corinne got killed, it's just like, where's the key? Tell us where the key is.
While she's dying, he's just like, Corinne. Trying to talk to her through her bubbles of blood in her throat. But you know what? I didn't think about that. I did definitely get like a submissive vibe from Mark, in terms of just kind of like, okay, this is your, the director is the one who's in command. And I definitely like got kind of like, that the nature of that relationship seemed very, very true. But I like the way you think, Zach Cherry. The next time I watch this movie, I'm gonna look for that, because I want it to feel justified.
The other thing that like made me think, well, first of all, I feel like other than like the guy who was like clearly impregnated the, what's her name, Sybil, and what was his name?
Yes, his name was it Danny? No, was it? It was Danny, wasn't it? I thought it was Danny.
I'm not sure. I can't. I'm looking through the thing. Anyway, the couple. There's the couple. He was clearly straight, and I would assume that Ferrari, the investor, he probably was too, just because of the way he was like leering at the female performers. But like I feel like, especially the owl guy, Brett.
Oh yeah. Oh,
well,
100%.
the dubbing for him, like make no mistake, like that.
Yes.
They wanted us to know, like, this guy's super gay. But I feel very strongly that, like, other than those two, every male character in this movie is gay. And the moment that also kind of tipped me off, the girl who. The saxophone player, the one that, like, fell down. She's like, sorry. When she was
Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, when she was leaving, she was like, bye, Mark. And he's just like, huh? Yeah.
Yes.
So he clearly had no interest in.
Wow. Yeah. I love that. Also, okay, just while we're talking about Mark, because there's not a lot to say, but I do want to bring up, I think his death was my favorite. His was the one that literally made me have a vocal response. The fact that, like, because I didn't see it coming at that particular moment. He was standing there. All of a sudden, arm shoots through the door and just kind of, like, wraps around, has him in the crevice of the elbow.
Yeah.
Very Jason Voorhees. But Jason would usually come through his whole self. So
he would just, like,
arm.
bash his head in.
Yeah.
Or Michael Myers in, Resurrection at the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Or even, like, if it had been an axe, it would have been The Shining. It would have been, Seed of Chucky.
Here's Irving.
Yes, exactly. But instead it's this arm that's just kind of, like, holding him, putting him in this chokehold, this makeshift chokehold, while everybody just kind of stands there and, which is, a lot of people, there's not a lot of, like, proactivity. We'll talk about prior to that, a kill prior to that, when it's really funny. But in this particular instance, what I really liked was, I can't remember who it was. Was it Corinne because Corinne was really, really going crazy while everybody started to rush to
Sybil.
help finally. Oh, Sybil. Sorry,
Sybil's
not Corinne.
the blonde one, yeah.
Okay, I'm always going to mix those two up. Sorry.
Yeah. The pregnant one that kept, vomiting.
The pregnant one. So wait, which one is Corinne? Help me.
Corinne was the one with the glasses, who is, like, the one that, like, was murdered on the stage. Who like hid the
right.
Yeah.
I wrote the wrong name at one point in my notes. So
Sybil is like the Carly of Wrong Turn, like the one who's just, like, level-headed until things start to get, like, really crazy, and then she's just like, I can't even. Yeah. That kind
Sybil's
of.
the pregnant one who's really just kind of like, and I think it is Danny.
And then she gets
Sybil is pregnant by Danny. I wrote it down.
She gets sawed in half. They pull her torso.
Oh, that was amazing too. But what I loved is that Sybil was standing there and she's just doing nothing, and I start to get angry with her. And then all of a sudden she finds the nerve to grab something. I don't remember what it was, but something that's like something sharp or something blunt, something heavy, whatever. She's going to do the best to try and help. I think it was something so she could stab the arm. And I was like, okay, awesome. You're about to do something. And just as she's about to do that, she notices a spot on Mark's shirt and it starts to bleed from underneath. And she's like looking at it like, what the fuck? So am I. And you know me, I love sharing the POV of, like, a character because I'm just kind of like, oh, this movie's happening to me. And that's when you see this drill, this, like, drill bit, giant corkscrew coming through Mark's gut. and it's blood splatter and everybody starts screaming and everything like that. And then it's revealed that's exactly what's happening. And I just wrote the note, Mark's death is awesome! Because I like I said, I was screaming. I was just like, what is happening? It was the most intense thing I think that had happened up until that point. And it was incredibly gratifying for me. But prior to that, I think it was when, Corinne's murder is the one where everybody's literally just standing there doing nothing because she's on stage, right?
Well, they think it's part of the, maybe that was the Scream 2 correlation of just sort of
everybody looks shocked though.
People
everybody
watching
knew what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
because
that was but that was the thing. Like they kept but they kept rewriting the play because, like, that was the whole conversation of, like, Peter. He's like, I want to talk to that journalist because he wanted to find out all the information. And he's like, inspiration. Now the owl is just no regular owl. He's Irving Wallace, and we're going to use his, like, how meta of them.
The
to
irony.
Use his story. So yeah, it felt like it was very made up as they were going along because he's just like, 100%. Kill her already. Like just do it.
And then he pulls out the knife. What's the knife for?
And and they were like, half of them were like, kind of like, this isn't right. And then the other half were like, so maybe like, the opening of Scream 2 where Jada is up on the stage, where it's just like everyone's like, half the people are like, I thought it was part of
the... And then people are just, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like,
or covering their ears,
this is too intense. Like, this is not fun anymore, guys. But I still think it's part of the promotional thing. But because she, but I mean, literally, like, she gets stabbed enough that people start to know that she's dying. Yeah. Nobody intervenes to try and stop it, so he escapes. The killer, Irving Wallace, gets off stage, and then they deal with the aftermath.
And he easily is just like hides wherever he has to. That's the great thing about this movie. It's like it's all, predominantly set in one place. And they made good use of that building. Yeah.
There was also something that happened, I think, that, again, like the filmmaking, I could really admire what was happening. I think it was when Laurel, I don't remember what particular point in the movie it is. I think it's when Laurel first... Oh, I remember. It's when Laurel first takes off that red wig and she's changing and she's alone. She looks so much prettier. Well, she looks so much prettier without that orange wig too, I just gotta say. But all of a sudden I'm just kind of like, wow, what a pretty girl. And she had like the big fake boobs, and didn't she have like a fake tummy or something?
It looked like that too. Well, she was dressed like a clown. Like she had this like frumpy thing on that, like
she wasn't the leading lady yet.
Completely like took away like any sort of like form from her body.
So. And then she became really, really pretty, but then she became kind of a monster, which I love. But she, there was one point where she was moving around, and there was I just remember a shot that I think they cut to 2 or 3 times, where it was just a real tight close-up of her face, particularly her eyes, almost in profile. And what it got across to me was just vulnerability. I just kind of thought... and it's interesting you brought up opera earlier. Like, this is a vulnerable place, like around the eye mask and everything like that. I think at this particular point in cinema in 1987, I think the way a lot of directors got a shortcut to vulnerability was to make their actress naked. And I was just kind of like, this actually works even more for me, because they're not exploiting anything, unless there's some eye fetishist out there who I don't know about, and maybe there is, more power to you. But there was just something it made her, it just made her look like she was being preyed upon. It made me worried about her, and I already kind of like developed an opinion about her prior to that moment. Even though I love watching her on screen, I didn't think she was a good person, and especially the way I think I trusted what Brett was saying about her, the fact that. Because he was telling, tales out of school, talking about what, he used some harsher language. I would call her a sex-positive opportunist. So, but to see this sex-positive opportunist all of a sudden, kind of cast as a victim by the movie, potentially for that scene, I didn't know if she was going to make it through, because I had forgotten, what happened in the initial screening. So I don't know. I think that's effective filmmaking. I was really on this filmmaker's side while I was watching the movie, and just kind of like going rah rah rah. I mean, I'm enjoying the morsels you're giving me, whether it is leaning in a little bit more in the direction of camp, or leaning a little bit more in the direction of legitimately like unsettling cinema. It makes me happy.
Well, it's interesting that your mom, like on her viewing, like she slept through most like of the beginning, and then like came towards the end, because I mean this is a movie that gets better as it goes along. Like I would argue that like the beginning of this is kind of dull, because it takes I don't want to say that it's poorly paced, but there is a lot of like falderall, like I said, like the randomness of like we gotta go to the hospital and this. I mean, once they get back, and then like the first kill, which is Betty, which I mean like why did she even have to keep going back and forth? If she had just gone into the building, they might have all been fine. But is it like a pickaxe that she gets through her mouth?
Oh wait, I assumed that's what it was, just the way it found its way there, but it was so quick. And it wasn't like readily discernible. I wasn't just kind of like, oh, I know exactly what that is. And again, I think the ambivalence, or not ambiguousness, that's the word I'm looking for. The ambiguousness just fed me because whatever it was, it looked like it hurt. It looked like when metal meets man loses every time.
Woman.
You know?
The
woman, Hugh man. Well, it doesn't work if I don't have. It doesn't have the alliteration if I say woman. When welded metal meets woman.
You could have just said when metal meets meat, or something like that.
Ew! Oh, that's so gross. You just called a woman a piece of meat. I think that's.
What I thought was so funny about that moment is that it's like her POV seeing like the thing swing out of nowhere, but she stops and because I guess she senses it or she sees something, but all we see is like this pickaxe come out of nowhere into her face. But yeah, from that point on, it kind of there is an ambivalence because like nobody seems to care other than Alicia, because they're just like, well, we got a show to put on, but there's that like another...
yeah, go ahead.
But I was just gonna say, like, it's just like it slows down a bit because it's like it just seems like all the cops come there and it's almost like that's the end of the movie. Like if it was a typical like modern day slasher where it's like we got to have an ambulance scene, we got to all the people, or like the end of Halloween Resurrection where just like we got all the cops outside, it's like the nightmare is over, and then there's a lull, it kind of slows down, and then they're back in there, and then there's the decision, we're gonna lock ourselves in, which I mean, who the fuck does that? That's a fire hazard for one. But I mean, I guess
100%.
I guess like the logic of the movie, it doesn't matter.
No.
But it kind of, from that point on, it takes a bit of time to get going again, because that whole stretch is just kind of like Alicia. I don't even know why doesn't she leave? I guess she's waiting to get paid.
Oh my god.
But it feels like her being in the building still feels very contrived. Like, why has she waited all this time before leaving? Because then when she finally leaves, the door is locked, and I don't understand either why Peter, who's clearly just like had enough of her shit, why he wouldn't just open the door and let her out. Just get out of here if you wanted her gone that badly.
Control freak. I think he'd rather control her destiny as much as he can, even though she's no longer his leading lady at that point. But which she finds out. But I also, this is another thing about Peter though, why I was like, thank you for making him oddly interesting, because after Betty is killed, he is probably the coldest about it because he sees it as a business opportunity. He wants to delay. He talks to the report. Oh wait, because that's another thing that like fucked me up. Didn't he call Ferrari over? And Ferrari really looked like Paul Sorvino in his first shot in the movie for a while. I was kind of like, oh my god, did I forget Paul Sorvino's in this? And then you see him in the next shot, in the next scene that he has, and I'm just kind of like, that is not Paul Sorvino at all. Anyway, neither here nor there. But Ferrari, he pulled him aside. So since Ferrari is the contributor, or the I don't know, producer?
The producer, yeah.
Okay, the producer. So, because he needed to talk to him. So for a while I thought, like, is he a reporter? Like, because I got confused for a minute, because he had all that money that he was counting. I was like, well, then why is he counting the money if they're talking about press? But I guess if the producer is handling the press for the show they're putting on, maybe that makes sense. And maybe that makes sense why he's counting the money to keep them over, overtime and everything like that. That's another hilarious thing. Somebody died literally like within an hour, and it's almost believable that a company would continue to rehearse if it's down to the wire. We only have the space for so much time before we open. Let's do this one for Betty. I can see that happening, but that didn't happen on screen in this movie.
At the end of Maxine, when they're like, let's take a moment.
Yes, 100%. I can definitely see that. But but what I loved about Peter was I could see initially just like the coldness of him wanting to use her murder, to boost the box office. for their show. Because think about it, if we don't release it until like the day we open or whenever, like tickets will sell like hotcakes and we'll have a huge hit on our hands and everything like that.
The thing is, like, he lied to the reporter and said that she was actually I don't know if it was the actress or the lead actress.
Yes,
and then someone, I think it was Alicia, just like, whoa, because nobody would care about a wardrobe mistress.
Right. a lowly wardrobe mistress, I think she said. But what I love about it is I kind of appreciated his pragmatic take on it, because I don't think he should have taken it to the cast that particular night and in that particular way. Mm-hmm. But that said, the decisions that he was making behind the scenes about like the timing and everything, I was like, you know what, that's actually a really, really good plan. Like, wait a respectful amount of time, but then find a way to just so it doesn't tank the show, so that everybody's efforts aren't for nothing. Like, there's a way to deal with the politics of it, like the keep up appearances, as it were, mm-hmm. and keep your messaging clear so nobody thinks it's being done in bad taste, including your company. The problem is Peter is not tactful enough to take the time to try and persuade his company that this is what's right. It's just kind of like a my way or the highway. Yeah. But even if you choose the highway, you're still staying in this, locked den of death.
Maybe Peter's actually a Scorpio.
Maybe. I'm glad you said it.
Ouch.
But because also
I don't know if I would throw someone if I was in a horror movie and the killer was approaching. If I would grab someone and throw them into the path of
even if it was Laurel, would you throw a Laurel into the path of the killer?
I mean, the thing is, like, none of us would ever know how we would respond until we're in the situation. But I just like this mentality of just like, well, if I'm gonna die, it's like, we haven't covered it yet, but Inferno, there's a moment where there's a character who is killed, or like dying, and takes the opportunity to like grab another character so they fall down and then like put their dying body on top of them so that this person has no chance of getting away. And again, it's just like, I think it's a hysterical trope. It's like, maybe not hysterical, but it's a lot of fun because it's just like, what are you doing? Like, because it gets you to like react and just be like, what the fuck? Like, they could have gotten away.
There are plenty of examples of it in particularly slasher movies. I'm thinking of one right now, but I don't want to.
I mean, I think it's a much more interesting trope than the, like the sacrifice, which would be the opposite of that. Like, well, I'm gonna make sure that I'm the only one that dies, so you can all get out of there. Because that's never felt particularly realistic to me either. I mean, there are some people that might be a martyr, just oh, let me put myself in harm's way for someone that I really care about. But it's like most of the time it's just and it's sad to say, it's like, oh, here's the black person, he's gonna come in and save the day to make sure the white people, the white man and woman couple can make it out of the end and go on and live live their perfect Barbie and Ken future.
I mean, we'll probably never cover it because it's part of the Conjureverse, and I know neither of us really has a big appetite for. We might. Okay, but I'll say Annabelle, Alfred Woodard in that movie. When that happened, I remember in the theater, I said out loud, just like, "What? Really? Oh!" And everybody joined in because we were all like, "Fuck this movie!" And there were candy and popcorn being thrown. It was great, but
and it came out of nowhere. That's what I remember. It came out of nowhere. It was just sort of like.
Yeah.
There was no build up to it. There's nothing about her. It's just sort of like, I guess you're just supposed to accept, I'm this single black woman, I own a shop.
That's I lost a child, so I don't have anything left to live for. Apparently, We'll go into the direction I think that movie should have gone.
The Ab Fab episode where she just says to that girl, she's like, "You only work in a shop. You can lose the attitude.
You can drop the attitude."
Imagine the lead character, the lead female character of of Annabelle just turning to Alfred Woodard and saying, "You only work in a shop. You can drop out of a window." You know. Anyway,
the shop girl in that Ab-Fab episode deserved that. Anyway, I just wanted that to be on the table. Anyway,
the opposite. So anyway, yes, the opposite,
Yes.
like of that trope, to have the character who'd be like, "Fuck you all! I'm gonna actually like put you in harm's way to further my own survival." Like that's interesting, you know.
It makes me think of two movies that belong to two separate franchises. Each movie, I'm sure you can tell that the movie that I'm thinking of just by the way I say a name that they share in common. One movie that has the trope of which you're speaking is Tina! And
The New Blood.
yes. And then the other movie that has the flip side of that is Tina.
Halloween 5.
Tina. Yes, Halloween 5, because that Tina in Halloween 5 does like run. And yeah. So that's the one you hate, but then in
I
Friday
don't hate
7,
Tina.
No, but I mean, like, no, that's the trope.
Oh,
you
the
hate,
trope.
The trope you
Yeah,
hate.
yeah.
Whereas the trope in Friday 7 is the one where Weekend at Bernie's Bad News Cruise is holding Tina's mother in the place of and it's almost, he may as well be ringing a dinner bell going like, "I've got her for you, Jason."
They literally
like,
could both run away.
What are you doing? She's impaled by whatever garden implement Jason happens to have at his access at that particular point. But and to put a cap on just that whole scenario, I also do appreciate that Peter goes right to being a dick and tells them, "Let's take a 2-minute break." I swear he said 2. I don't think he said 10. Let's take a 2-minute break and then let's get concentrated and do this. Like, okay, everybody, you just watched somebody die. Take 2 minutes for yourself and then get back on the horse.
Totally. Well, what I love is that at that point, because that's what, to get back to my original thought there of just like the movie kind of starting off and being a little bit slow, but at that point, like once you get to the Corinne murder, it's like high octane from that moment on, like, because it's just like one after another. They're all getting killed. Like it's the hour point. Like I counted, like that's when the scene starts where the feather falls onto her face. And at that point, the only person who's left alive barely is Laurel, who's, imminently about to be killed off. So the last half an hour of the movie is just Alicia. And I think that's, even though I love this sort of like the rapid fire, like let's just kill everyone off. I love the kind of slow burn of that third act of just everything really, like the suspense. And it's almost like, here's another question. Do you think that he knows that she's in there still, or did he just sort of lose track of her? Because she, I think it would be easy to lose track of someone like Alicia, just in terms
100.
of like the lack of like
I mean, he could have even like walked by and been like a good distance from her, but noticed her like up in the flies, like on the catwalk, and just seen her laying there motionless and gone like, "Oh, okay, she's taken care of." Or he could have even seen, the interaction between Laurel and her and thought like, "Oh, okay, she took care of it. I don't have to." Yeah. And you know what? I don't need her for my diorama. Okay, can we just talk about Irving Wallace's? He captured my heart as a movie slasher when he took all the bodies, because he didn't. I was wondering, I couldn't remember. Is he going to do like the Jason and the Michael thing where he hides the bodies and strategically, if he knew that Allie was awake, is he just going to strategically place them to kind of like scare her through a little path of fright or stage fright, or but no, he didn't do that. What he did was for himself. I thought, oh my God, he's an artist. He's staging a little diorama for himself, a lovely stage of death. And I just love that he even went over to the tape player because he wanted a little mood music for the tableau that he pieced together, and grabbing, Peter's head and putting it on top of it. I mean, something about mixing authentic organic body parts that once had life, even if it's cinematic, so it's not real, but something about the idea of mixing those with like mannequin parts or any other kind of like machinery, whatever. There's something about it that's just so morbid and beyond killing, because it goes even beyond playing with the corpses. You are now positioning yourself as an interpreter, like this shouldn't be over here, or be much more handsome if the head is turned in this direction atop this mannequin. I like this outfit and the way the blood just drips. There's something about his calm as he's doing it too, and then the serenity he feels when he finally sits among the pieces of his work inside the tableau with the cat in his lap, and he's just stroking it like a Bond villain, a mysterious Bond villain.
And the cat, accidentally triggering the fans to just make it all...
It was amazing, yeah. All of a sudden the feathers are there, and it gives this wonderful snowfall effect. And he just kind of looks... I see him looking around in his little owl mask, his barn owl mask, I believe it's a barn owl. And he's just kind of looking around like, oh, that's nice. Yeah. It's like I'm inside a snow globe.
Apparently there's I don't know if it's NECA, but there is a figure, I guess an Irving Wallace figure, Jason.
Oh my God.
He showed it to me, but apparently it's very expensive, so I don't know if it's like out of production or just is expensive. I would want to have one too. But it's,
they know that's why they charge so much, because they know we're like, oh, it's just obscure enough to be like, people are going to come in and they're going to see it. We're not going to know what it is. But if they do, we know.
I'm still waiting for the the 13 Ghosts. We talked about those. Like, give them their line of figures.
Oh my God, 100%. I also just when I was watching, once the camera went on, because it was my mom, that's when she chimed in. She was just kind of like, what's really sick about this? That camera's running. It's not like he just took a photo. He wants footage of it. And it made me think about Sinister. Like he was making a little Sinister movie, that Ethan Hawke was going to play through his projector a little later and take notes on.
Or like the killers in House of Wax recording everything with the guy's camera.
Totally. Oh my God. And then I got this big ol'... Because it did start to scare me when she fucked up while she's trying to get the key lodged out with, I think it was a nail that she had, and he started stalking around because he knew something was wrong. And
because the music stopped and the key dropped.
Right.
And that whole sequence is just incredible. Like everything from the her when she's like walking down the corridor. And going into the shower area, and then like Laurel kind of just being in there, and just slowly dying, and even like the eye contact as she is getting finished off, to to her kind of like going out and then seeing the key going underneath. There might be, and this is like if I have like a complaint with here, is that at one point it does cut to the cops outside, because we're cutting back to them at varying points throughout the movie, but there's one that happens really late, and I think it's the one where he's like, don't you think I look like James Dean? Which is like, this is very poorly placed. Like, this is like, before it was cool, but now like we're in the home stretch here. We don't need this. And it felt like very kind of like, look at me, I'm the director and I'm in this movie. I just want to get myself in there as much as possible. Because I think it might have been like, it interrupted that flow. But everything for like getting the key out and then like gouging him in the eye. And then my favorite, there's a lot of favorites I have in this movie, but when she's running towards the door with the key, she's got her arm outstretched in front of her, and she's running to the door, and there's a close-up of the key in her hand, and it is clearly not the key. It is like a prop that is like the size of her hand. We want to make sure that we see the key, and it's just like running with this thing to get to the door. And then she still doesn't like open the door on time.
Well, because this is the thing. That's also the point where at some point in there in the mix, I was just kind of like, she had a gun. Where's the gun? And then later on, she has an axe, which while he's climbing to her, while she's up in the flies on the catwalk and everything. And I'm just like, well, if you're going to wait for him, because first she's waiting as he's climbing. I'm like, well, if you're going to wait for him, like wait for him to get all the way to the top, just nail him in the head. Yeah. But she starts chopping, which is going to take longer. So there's more like of a burning, whatever. But if he still gets up there, you can still give him the axe to the head. And then it ends up kind of working because he falls. And I'm like, okay, good. And that fall, holy shit. When he fell, I thought that broke his neck and it probably just made the mask go forward real far, but it looked like the head, because it also sounded like there was a snap. Whatever the head fell on while he was falling backward, like onto his back, it looked like the head went full on snap forward, like he's nodding, and that hurt me. I was just kind of like, ooh, I think she did it. Yeah. Like in spite of herself.
Well, she was like, she was throwing whatever I was just getting Adrian King.
Yes.
At the end of Friday the 13th, like, here's a pencil.
Yarn.
Here's some twine, like whatever we can, and just like Betsy Palmer like deflecting it, like
chin.
with a big smile on her face, like
100%. But then
this doesn't hurt. I'm invincible to your weapons.
Right. But then like she even though she did that, she runs down and she drops the axe before she runs down. I'm just like, you need to hold on to a fucking weapon, girl. Like, you need to know by now you're in a horror movie.
At least she did have the wherewithal to dump the fire onto him.
Oh, right.
But
even then, I thought she had a fire extinguisher minutes ago. Once he's done burning, she can put him out so it doesn't spread, so she doesn't die in this fire trap now, you know? Like this.
Yeah, because she doesn't know if like that key actually is the right key, and
I don't know if she's going to do well on Survivor. Spoiler, I don't know.
Well, who knows? She could be out right away, or she could be.
They could keep her around because she's not a threat. Yeah. Oh my God. We never.
Maybe
know.
she'll make it to the fire challenge. and then I guess the epilogue, we'll call it, because it's all about this fucking watch. And I love like her putting it together, like the bodies, and just like someone's missing, like she's going through all of them, and it's like I'm getting what did we talk about recently where it was this thing where just like putting it together very slowly, but it makes me think of that Family Guy where they were making fun of Silence of the Lambs, and where they're just showing like Lois playing the lady FBI Clarice, and just like, what is the connection here? And she ends up just taking a piece of string from the photo of the victim to the photo of Buffalo Bill. And it's just like, that's the connection.
Yeah.
But we talked about something.
It wasn't Raising Cain, was it?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't remember. I don't know what it was. I'm looking back at like the last few things that we've done, and I can't for the life of me. But sorry.
Yeah. Okay. But there's just like that. It's another trope that just like, wait a minute, there was only this many. Something is amiss here.
And I lost count because the last time that I counted, I think, was when they were down to 3 guys and 3 girls, and I think that's when Peter started asserting his dominance in a real way. And I think that's even when he shrieked. Another one of my favorite lines is like, "I'm not going to sit around here to be slaughtered like a pig." And the scene after that, you know what?
He had an Angelina scream free moment.
Did not fuck that guy Mark just to die with a.
Well, that would have been Mark's.
That would have been Mark's actually. Mark
I did not fuck that pig Peter to die here with the second-rate theater players like you.
Love it. And I mean,
and then do like the weird, like the Anna Faris runaway.
Yeah, right. But the next scene, you know what? That's another piece of evidence to like kind of like add to the case that you're making about Mark and Peter. I just want to touch on that one more time because I did make a note about the scene right after his kind of outburst after Mark's death. The scene immediately following that, he was sniffling, and I couldn't tell if it was because he had been crying or because he had just done a line of coke, honestly. It was 1987. Could have happened. But now I'm thinking he was sniffling because he was crying because his lover Mark is no more.
Yeah.
And he had to witness it. That's why.
And
Okay,
now he's stuck with these three women who he just clearly
but a really
cannot
cool
stand.
rock and roll cue.
Yeah.
While they're all like fighting against him and everything. But that was the last time I counted.
Yeah, the music in the movie is phenomenal. Simon Boswell.
Good. Yeah.
And it's got there's like it's almost like a cat, like a mew, like mew, mew, mew.
Yeah. Very synthy, very Euro.
Well, you were talking about like the sound of like the water and the cat at the beginning. Like there is kind of like an essence to this music that does have like, you know, there's cats, there's like water, rain. Like it's just, I love when like music can somehow embody like a feeling or a mood or an element that exists in the movie.
Mm-hmm. And this one evoked that kind of feline energy without, I mean, it happened after this movie, but like I think about, when I think about feline energy, I tend to think about what Danny Elfman did for Batman Returns with all those strings making that kind of meow, you know, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that was the thing that made me laugh, because you were talking about like it wrapping up. Allie, just the fact that like she just watched all her, they're not her friends per se, some of them were, but really her coworkers, let's just put it that way, her colleagues. She watched them all die.
Look, she was not gonna like talk to any of those people. When she left, she's like, well, I guess I'll see you around. And they're like, yeah.
She's like, oh my God, that's who she's like. She's like Julie in Jawbreaker. Like, she would have had a scene sitting with her love interest saying like, Betty was the only one who meant anything to me. The rest of it was a total sideshow. But anyway,
Julie in
Jawbreaker.
Oh, Judy? Julie, who are you talking about?
Julie, Rebecca Gay Hart's role. Isn't she Julie?
Yes, but I don't think she was the one she wasn't the voiceover. That was Judy Greer.
When Julie's telling her love interest that like Liz was the only one who meant anything to me. That
voiceover.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Sorry if I confused anybody. No, it wasn't even a voiceover. It's an exchange they had.
Because I was saying because you have like, Julie Benz. You got Judy Greer. You
got
Rebecca Gay Hart in the role of Julie.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I'll clarify. Rebecca Gay Hart in the role of Julie when she's telling, is it Zach? Her love interest, just like, you know, Liz was the only one who ever meant anything to me. The rest of it was just, you know, Tracy's bullshit, but Courtney's bullshit. Now I'm mixing up all the names. Okay, but anyway, when I love that everybody's died for Allie in this movie, and the fact that she's kind of like, my watch. That's the thing that she has to go. No, but it's very expensive, and I'm like, oh, okay, you got your priorities in order. Yeah. But what I really love about that is, you know, in a total default final girl feat, she's not the reason that the killer gets kind of like delayed, you know, at the crucial moment. It's because of Willie. And I just love that Willie keeps repeating after he's taken Irving out, as it were, as far as, you know, we know until the end credits are about to roll.
Where's the sequel, you know?
Yeah, he just keeps going, exactly. He just keeps going, right between the eyes, just like I said. I got him, right between the eyes. I told you. I said I'd do it. And I did, right between the eyes. I got him. Just like I said. He just keeps doing it like he's in times.
Both of them are going to be in therapy for a while. We know that much. There's the one more thing I'll say is like that moment, like right before he appears, because that mannequin behind her is creepy. Like
looks.
Like
I kept expecting it to come to life. Yes.
I thought it was real. I thought that was actually him, the human.
Yeah.
But then I guess there's the when it does kind of like roll around and then he's standing behind her, he's in front of the mannequin, but I guess it's sort of like the bait and switch of it all. But there was another moment, there's another Tenebrae moment in this, because when Brett is, you know, when he's like, he has his moment, like it's showtime. I forget. No, it's the line that you opened with, like, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. It may as well have been Faye Dunaway. It's like, let's go. But yeah,
Wallace.
He does the, what did I just do that? He bends down.
The limp wrist for anyone who's listening.
The limp wrist. No, his body is just like he bends over and there's the owl killer.
Right,
behind
yes.
him. Very much like in Tenebrae and also Raising Cain at the end of the movie there.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, 100%. Also, he's got some great lines. I kept writing down. I thought my opening line was going to be a Brett line, just like, I think it's when Betty and Allie are leaving, maybe, and then like they say something. They call him a cunt or something, and he's just kind of like, a rose by any other name. And I'm just like, oh, I like this guy. He was so much fun. I all I wanted for him was like, for him to just kind of like find someone and be happy. But,
Yeah.
Because there was one other moment. What was it? Shit.
Well, his death was particularly mean-spirited because he just got tied up. He would have lived. And the fact that worked, and Peter just like started axing him before even like seeing, and then like there's like his hands are tied.
Yeah, I know. It made me sad.
And how many owl masks did they have too? Like that's
maybe. Well, I thought that Irving actually just like put it on him for like the time being, and then he recovered it once they discovered that it was him and scattered elsewhere. He was just kind of like, all right, now this is mine. I like it. Smells like death. I'm Irving Wallace. Yeah. But
all right. Well, if you have anything else to say, let's say it, and then let's carry on.
I love Brett. I don't have any more notes about him. I'm learning, but I should have scrawled more.
All right. Well then, folks, let's do our thing and let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we killed people. On purpose.
All right, we need a cherry on top for Stage Fright.
You know where I stand. How do you feel?
I think Peter.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that where you were going? I wasn't sure because you were just talking about Brett. So.
Oh no, I love him too. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at him getting it either.
Yeah.
But Peter, such a crucial part of like the movie because we need someone to be that mean and that heavy and that domineering, but also it's not in a way where I'm literally waiting for him to die. Even as he's pushing his cast member in front of him, I'm just like, you coward! Oh my god, I can't wait to see what you do next. He's one of those kinds of villains. So yeah, I need him. I need him in my life. And I thought he was played perfectly. Mm-hmm. I don't know the actor's name. I should look it up. Attention should be paid if he's our cherry.
Yeah, it is David Brandon.
Thank you. Thank you, David Brandon, for all you do.
Born David Kane Houghton in Cork, Ireland. But yeah, that's who that guy is. All right, so last week on the Cherry Picker, we asked you who deserves to die the most in The Shining. Is it Chucky or is it Jack? Is it Jack?
Your Jack is Chucky, so
it's the same. I
so
mean,
you know.
yeah,
it is the same.
It's just any like crinkly voiced actor. As well. There's like whether it's like Christian Slater or Leonardo DiCaprio or
Leonardo. I gotta be honest.
I gotta be honest with you, Rose. I wasn't really feeling this until you let me draw you naked.
But I see this lasting 6 months.
I see it lasting until the ship sinks. All right. You nominated Delbert. Or no, I nominated. Sorry. You nominated Stuart Ullman. I nominated Delbert Grady. Across Patreon, Instagram, YouTube's. The final vote was 346 for Delbert Grady versus 171 for Stuart Ullman. Ullman.
Well played. What? Yeah, Ullmund?
I don't know. Ullman.
I thought it was Ullman.
It's Ullman.
Like
Ullman.
Tracy.
Yeah, like Tracy. Ullman. Interesting fact about the actor who plays him. He was the original James Bond.
What?
And when I say the original James Bond, so the actor Barry Nelson, the Casino Royale originally, because there's the spoof one with Peter Sellers from 67,
Right.
which is not part of the official canon. And then obviously there's the Casino Royale of like Daniel Craig. But initially it was like an episode of some sort of like suspense show or something. They did Casino Royale, and the roles were like reversed in a sense that like James Bond was American and his name was, they called him Jimmy Bond, and then Felix Leiter was British in the movie. But anyway, Barry Nelson played Jimmy Bond, so he was actually the first on-screen incarnation of the character that ever existed.
I have to see that. Oh my God.
I've
Is that
never
available?
I don't know. I've never seen it, but fun fact about Stuart Ullman.
Yeah. Oh my God. And topical for us this month.
Yes, because that is the Cherry Picker After Dark. I forgot to like even plug the Cherry Picker After Dark. We'll do it in a second, one thing at a time.
Okay. Okay.
But what's interesting is that even though I did kind of beat you by a large margin there, the Instagram vote was very close. It was 39 to 37. So
Oh, thank you guys.
yeah, everywhere else it was like, tipped very largely to one side.
YouTube likes extremes. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see what the YouTube comments have to say.
Okay.
Joshy Boy says, Ullman, what an officious little prick.
Thank you.
Silent Saturn. Looks like things are starting to get to ZACK'S, so voting for his pick this time. What does that even
That
mean?
is amazing. That is amazing. I'm really happy that they voted for you for that reason.
I take umbrage. I also don't get why everyone is so dead sure Ullman knew what was going to happen. Based on what? That something bad happened once many years ago. He was considerate enough to tell Jack about it, even though it might have resulted in him declining the job. I don't get bad guy from him at all. Jack made an informed choice. He's just a terrible person.
No, I mean, I agree with the last sentence, but I think it's just basically he didn't want to be liable. He didn't want it on his conscience, so he could go like, I warned him, and he wouldn't have to be haunted for the rest of his life that he led a man and his family to death. That's what I thought.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Mondo Trasho
Yay.
CA. I choose Delbert Grady. Honestly, I could care less for either, but he possibly killed his family and is racist, so he can go. When I think of the movie The Shining, I honestly can't think of someone who deserves to be killed other than maybe Jack Torrance. Maybe I could nominate Danny, because icon rule or not, his acting for me is very amateur and lackluster compared to the Danny from the book. The Danny from the book?
The acting of the Danny from the book.
The acting of the book.
The performance on the page is solid.
As an option,
on film, not so much.
As an option, I would maybe choose Stanley Kubrick. The Shining is a good movie with great atmosphere, but it's nowhere near as good as the book. It doesn't capture anything from the book, which I have reread many times. The book is scary, intriguing, and sad, among many things. And the movie doesn't capture a majority of it at all, in my opinion. For one of the next movies for consideration, can I add New York Ripper, one of the most intense graphic slashers ever made from Lucio Fulci, or maybe Opera from Dario Argento? Wow, what a coinky-dink.
Yeah, right. I've been wanting to see more Fulci, too.
They recently released a new special edition Blu-ray 4K of it. Both, I think, would be fun rides. I actually bought that. It would be great if a channel as fun as yours could give them a platform for people to check them out. They're both made by interesting and talented directors who I wish were more well known. Well, thanks
for calling us fun. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you for all of that, and you might be surprised. We'll see. Jaboni, voting Stu. Delbert did a horrible thing, but the house had a hand in that, and ultimately he's just one Delbert in a long line of many Delberts. Ullman,
I agree.
No relation to Tracy, thank goodness, is actively putting the line together.
We're in alignment with a lot of our listeners and the things that they're bringing up with Tracy Ullman and with the other thing. I can't remember anything.
Dream Warrior Diary. The people that need to die the most are Delbert's parents. Who the hell names their child Delbert?
I don't even know if that was his name because they call him by another name at another point in the movie.
Charles,
So
yeah.
Charles. So fuck that. I don't know.
Maybe
Charles
it was
is a-
Chuck Grady.
Chucky. Oh
Chuck
my God.
Grady.
There he is. Never far away.
Rowena Potter. I'm going Stewart. He knew what would more than likely happen based on the history of the hotel. And the last family that worked for him, he didn't care and more likely just didn't want to have to do it himself because he was scared of what would happen to him if he had to stay. Was that ever a possibility that if he couldn't find a caretaker, he'd be like, well, I guess I'm just going to stay here the whole winter?
I mean, that's what I thought. If you can't find someone to do that, and if the person prior to you, he said, my predecessor in this particular role, so I mean, if you can't find somebody else to hand it off to, I think you kind of have to, because otherwise it's going to fall into complete disrepair.
He's just the manager. He's not the owner.
But he said, it's what the guy before him did. So it falls on his shoulders if he can't hire someone to do it, I think. Yeah.
JoJo, 1996. Delbert Grady is already dead, though.
Did he? But does he deserve to be extinguished?
Yeah. Should we extinguish his flame?
Yes.
Like they do on Survivor.
No afterlife for you. That's dead for the dead.
Yes.
To quote Beetlejuice. Yeah.
Dylan Jameson, Ullman. As someone pointed out, he knew what happened to the last family and couldn't give a shit about the next. But this is the thing, that it wasn't the last family. It was 10 years before that. It wasn't like it happened in like 79.
We don't know what happened prior to that. Maybe he only wanted
there was
to tell
more
him about one case.
So there was more. Like, Jack Torrance left the office and the assistant was like, why don't you tell him about the murders from 1971 to 1979?
Because it can't be that fresh. It can't.
Yeah.
Maybe he's only legally like bound to tell him about one case.
Fair.
Who knows? I don't know.
David Garrido. Grady, because he chopped up his family with an axe.
Okay.
That seems very logical to me. Chevy Robinson. The only Stewart I trust is Stuart Little. Hamish.
Little mouse.
Hamish says my vote goes to Grady, but my real pick is Jack because, yeah.
Okay. I did think about it. I did,
Yeah.
Interesting. Somebody brought up like choosing the filmmaker too. We can do that if they're on screen,
No.
right?
Well, I mean, maybe if
they're
it's like a Michele Suave situation.
Yeah,
For
something like
stage
that.
fright, yeah.
And then, I mean, we do it with Jared Leto whenever he's in a movie, and people always kill him. So,
Has he directed?
no, but I mean, if he's just in a movie, people don't care about the character. They're just like Jared Leto because Jared Leto.
That's just like a Zach Cherry thing. Blue Box 87 says Stewart. I mean, who hires someone that looks that crazy? Thomas Baker. My vote goes to Grady. Amethyst Frost. Love that Wendy won the cherry on top for this movie after she placed at a very low tier on the final girls ranking Cherry Picker After Dark a couple years ago. R.I.P. Shelley Duvall. I also love these nominations for the sheer craziness that Grady and Ullman were the choices for the Shining episode of the original podcast by the opposite hosts who have nominated them this time. Forget him going on a rampage and killing his family. I kind of want Grady to die just because he found it fit to name his twin daughters Alexa and Alexi. A sick joke.
That is pretty sick.
Were those the names? Did they?
Sure, I don't remember.
Well, they're not.
I don't remember. They weren't twins.
They're
in
not
the,
twins.
In
they're just
the
they're
book
just,
at all.
Well, they're
and the
not.
girls.
I don't think that
the
they're
girls
twins.
are not twins either. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
one's a year
sisters.
older or something like that. Yeah, they're sisters.
I mean, that's one of those things, like misconceptions that we've all had at one point.
Sure. Yeah.
But we've corrected the mistake. Current standing for the regular Cherry Picker episodes. Oh, Amethyst has the scores here. Current standing for the regular Cherry Picker episodes is 63 Zach versus 50 Eddie. Other than Zach winning The Strangers Pray at Night, Eddie's actually won every regular episode since Strangers 2008 back in March. Now it'd be kind of funny if Zach has won The Shining, and me posting this comment was nullified 5 minutes ago at the time of Zach reading this out loud.
I mean, I did check it out after we recorded because it came up. It was a topic in the last recording that we did. And I remembered looking at it going like, okay, I'm at over 10 behind. Zach should not feel threatened at all. Like, I still have a lot to win.
But I gotta win, and I gotta win by a large margin, you know? Like, it's...
Whatever you need, Zach.
It's all fun and games. As far as the Shelley or Wendy placing low when we did the Final Girl rankings, I mean, I still think that like as a Final Girl, she's not. You know, it's because it's that energy. It's the Petronella and Beyond the like. Oh, could you like? There's a self doubt. Like, you know, can I actually handle this? So I mean, maybe
she waited a long time before she took the bat to his head. Yeah.
I don't remember where she like which tier Wendy fell in, but it definitely wasn't the very bottom one, and it definitely
she had some
I don't
really
think,
hefty competition too.
Yeah,
like,
it might have fallen in the middle. I'd have to go back and look.
Me too.
But that is a Cherry Picker After Dark episode, which we'll get to in a mo here. Yeah. The last two comments, Kieran Lee Hamilton. It's hard to read when it's all bunched together as one. Stuart, for sure. A guy knew about what happened to the last family and couldn't care less about what happened to the next. And then one BDI says, Stuart all the way. You can't blame a ghost for ghosting.
Thank you.
So it seems like a vocal minority.
As per usual. I appreciate that, guys. Thanks. But, okay, so Zach.
Oh, okay. Like, okay.
Consult the cast
we
list.
could,
yes.
Yeah, I could go in a direction of like a Laurel who had some pretty heinous things to do in this movie, but again, like she's sort of justified in some, like I'm just like I actually enjoy watching her. I think that you know, there's other people that I would probably rather get the axe first. I'm gonna. This is a really boring option, but I'm gonna go with Ferrari. Just because it's like, what does he do? But I mean, like, and you talked about his death. It was cool to like in the blue light there, but like other than a character, just being there and like leering and like having that Paul Sorvino vibe about him. I don't know. Yeah. It's like the old guy like hanging out with like all the young kids or something. Just like, what are you doing here?
Okay.
You're slowing things down. And once he gets killed,
he's funding the project.
He also if he's funding the project, but also if and like morally, when Corinna's dying, because everyone's kind of like they're concerned about her well-being, even Peter to a certain extent, but they want the key. He like full on grabs her and starts shaking her. Where's the key? So I think for that, that doesn't help him out much either. So that's my nom.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't bring up when we said cherry on top. I think Irving Wallace also deserves just a little space there. I'm not going to pick him for cherry picker though, because he's too interesting. And also, was it just me, just like tangentially for a moment, was it just me, or like when they revealed him very, very quickly when he was laying in that bed, he had some really big, beautiful brown eyes. I thought he was kind of hot. What did you think? Did you catch him?
I don't know. I'll take your word for it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure that, Jason will put the image up on the screen. But
yeah, we caught a glimpse of his face for like a moment.
I remember seeing him at the end, but he's all like bloodied and burnt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still has a nice grin,
Yeah. So
I'm so damaged. So I'm not going to pick him. I'm going to pick unfortunately our default final girl, because I don't think there's any reason she deserved to live when everyone else died. I mean, I think Willie deserved to live. But So I'm going to go for Alicia, for Allie, because she's motivated by selfishness and by... what else? I don't know. She doesn't take good care of herself. Like, even when she got the cortisone shot, I was like, that's something you're going to have to think about eventually. I know you got to, like, work through the pain, girl, but I don't... And then she comes back and finds out that she's been replaced. She just kind of... I mean, she doesn't do anything. She doesn't fight anybody.
She doesn't have a lot of agency, no.
No, yeah, go ahead. You were going to say?
No, it's your nomination.
But I mean, and even when she's... I feel like a final girl, true final girl energy, if she really wanted to get out of that fucking theater, she would have found a fucking way. Sydney Prescott would have found a way. Mm-hmm. Nancy Thompson would have found a way. Ellen Ripley would have found a way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's not... She didn't deserve to die necessarily any more than anybody else, but the fact that she lived as long as she did, fuck that. She should have been one of the first to die.
Maybe we should have a new category of just like, what are you doing here?
Who are you?
What is going on?
I like that category.
No, and you know what? Like, I thought about nominating her, but there's some, like, I do enjoy her to an extent. But that might be more so due to like what is happening on the screen and what is being forced to happen. That's the script. That's the writing and the directing.
I did want to ask you real quick. Mm-hmm. When she made her way into the bathroom and found Laurel in the shower like that, she did not seem at all bereft or even kind of scared or sad. She just... Did that make sense to you? Like the Scorpio in you, where you're just kind of like, yeah, die, bitch. Because all she does is hide in the shower stall next to her. And granted,
because she heard the guy coming.
I know, but Laurel's been like a bad person to her up until that point. But there wasn't even
like there's almost like a Laurel, like it might have been very faint, but
it was even fainter. It was like Laurel. It was not.
Well,
there was nothing, no sympathy, no empathy.
Doesn't she say, "Where is everyone else"?
Yeah,
that's what she
says.
Talking
to her.
Yeah, and it's just like
you don't matter.
She's got like she saw.
She doesn't put pressure on the wound to try and stop the bleeding or anything.
Hey, Laurel, good to see you. Where's everyone
else?
Exactly.
And that's why she's just selfish. I think she's just selfish. Anyway, that's my vote.
And you think that Scorpios are selfish? What did you ask?
No. No, but I mean, you have oft volunteered that you understand certain things that could be perceived as spiteful sometimes if someone deserves it, and I feel like
I can be spiteful.
Yeah.
All right.
If you feel it's justified, yeah.
Anyway, those are your options. You can vote for Ferrari, or you can vote for Alicia or Allie. So they call her both. And the polls will be up on YouTube. So head over to the community section. If you're new to the Cherry Picker, subscribe. You can watch us there. If you are watching and you want to listen instead, the RSS feed link is down in the descriptions below. You can also vote on Instagram. Follow us at the Cherry Picker Pod. And you can also vote on Patreon if you want to support the podcast and get access to the Cherry Picker After Dark, which comes with the Freddy Krueger tier, where you can watch our episodes like Final Girl Survivor and Scream Survivor and the Final Girl rankings, and there's a plethora that were there's more than 25, and each one of them is like 10 hours long. Head over there and as was kind of alluded to, what's the Cherry Picker After Dark for this month?
The Bond franchise, all the Eon. Is it Eon or E-O-N?
Eon.
Films.
Eon. I believe it stands for
Eon films.
I believe it stands for everything or nothing.
Really?
Yeah. But you say that with so much enthusiasm. Like, it's the Bond things. Yeah, we're gonna.
I'm still making my way. Okay. I'm carving my way through the franchise.
I've finished all the 60s ones, so I've moved on to the 70s here. But yeah, I mean, it's not even horror adjacent, but it's been we've got fans in our Patreon
And you're a
lineup.
fan.
So yeah, I'm a huge fan. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna watch all 25 and rank them individually. So that's coming up this month. Where can they find you on social media?
Edward is Truth, one word, traditional spelling on Instagram, YouTube. If you type it in, you'll find me, and Letterboxd, and what the hell, TikTok. How about you?
You can find me on my main YouTube channel, ZACK'Cherry, ZACKCHERRY, Instagram at RetroBitchface, Letterboxd, ZACK'Cherry, also, not also, just as well. And Twitter is ZACK'Cherry8. And if you want to follow MACABRE on social media, my movie here, you can go to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. It's at MACABRE the movie. Look for us on Kickstarter as well, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's a great way to, support horror movies that are made independently like this, because all of the funding that goes towards this is like, it goes to the trusted creators. So if you trust me and Eric and my team as creators, like, there isn't any meddling from, big Hollywood. So, we're going to get the purest form of the horror movie that we want as a short film, which will then be a proof of concept to get that feature-length movie made. So we're very excited about it. Thank you for letting me plug it one more time. Edward, what is going on next week?
Oh, is it the one with the family that does the problems for the other people?
That could be anything.
In the South. It's
Isn't
Texas
it
Chainsaw
always?
Massacre, the OG.
It is, yeah. Not to be confused with the franchise episode that we did, like way back when. We're giving TCM its own full-fledged episode, so that's going to be next week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will be right back.